Good afternoon, Griff. Welcome back.
How are you, Paul?
I don't know if the memo went out, but after the most recent arrest, I bet I've seen three or four different headlines. I'm looking at them right now in front of me. UGA continues enabling Kirby Smart to be Urban Meyer 2.0. You cover that program. How accurate are those descriptions?
Yeah, I don't know about comparisons. I don't really know about a lot about this latest arrest more than what's in the police report. And Colby Young's definitely suspended or suspended now, while they try to sort out what happened or what didn't happen. These sort of domestic issues. I'm not a criminal reporter, and I don't know him personally. You know that he's never been made available to the media, so I can't really pass any sort of judgment. And I think right now it's an information gathering
Well,
process.
I'm not really asking whether you're a criminal reporter. I'm just asking you about the perception that this program is now veering toward what Urban Meyer left behind in Gainesville about 15 years ago.
Yeah, I don't have that perception. I mean, what strikes me about the Urban Meyer tenure was, a really unfortunate situation with a tight end that's deceased now. Look, Georgia had a lot of off the field issues with driving incidents that's been very well publicized, well documented. I don't know how much of that's Georgia versus NIL and fast cars and kids with money. To me, that's kind of a different animal. In terms of the quality of people that Georgia's bringing in, when I go do interviews, I don't sense that. I don't see that. They have had a couple of kids that have been suspended, one dismissed in the last couple of years because of domestic related charges. But in terms of putting it under that classification, that my mind doesn't go there. I understand the need or want for people to want to sensationalize in headlines, but to me, I
Well,
that doesn't
Mike, I'm not
strike
sure they're
me. I
really
don't I don't sense that.
sensationalizing when you look at the vast
Yeah.
number that's happened under Kirby Smart.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's been murdered here, Paul, and I think this case is unresolved. So other than that, a kid was dismissed for a
So,
domestic related
so
incident earlier this
okay,
year.
listen, obviously you're not going to answer that, so let's move on
Well, I'm
to.
not trying to be a defensive attorney, but you're asking me my
No,
opinion,
I
and
mean
I and I don't
you
see it
cover the
raising to that
team,
height.
Mike,
Yeah, I
and the
do. I
perception
do.
out there is that this program has run amok. I'm just trying to get inside
Yeah.
where you allegedly are and get
hmm
some context. That's all.
Well, I can understand, when people group the driving related offenses of the last few years with, the two domestic incidents that I'm aware of. Again, I don't necessarily put the fast cars in the same category, but to your point, you're saying, look, there's a lot of guys that have been arrested for whatever reason. And if you're going to classify the driving in the same circumstance, then yeah, you can go there. But when I think about Urban Meyer's program and what happened there, I think about, just some horrific allegations and a player that was, later charged with murder. So I don't put those in the same. I personally don't. I mean, maybe other people do,
But
but
I don't
that's
think anybody is. But
opinion.
the fact that a number of people would even make that judgment is to
Yeah.
me has to be very. Let's move on. Let's talk
I
about.
would say it's trouble. I mean, listen, it's troubling. I mean, Kirby Smart addressed it. I mean, anytime a coach is in front of the room addressing incidents and potential lack of discipline, then certainly that's not good. That's not a good look for Georgia. I'm not sitting here telling you that the sky's blue and everything's perfect. I mean, there have been some off-field incidents that Kirby Smart's had to deal with. You've seen some guys that have been dismissed in the past. You've seen a tragic driving related incident, a year and a half ago or so. So no, things aren't perfect, but you're asking me if I'd put it under, if I would look at it like I looked at the Urban Meyer, regime. I don't, but I can understand, I guess, if people look at collectively the number of arrests and off-field incidents and group the driving related incidents with, the two domestic related incidents, one where a guy's been dismissed and the other one pending. I can understand why people do that. I personally don't, covering the team. I don't sense that here, but people on the outside, write headlines, read headlines, and can interpret it however they want.
Let's talk about some of the biggest games in the SEC, especially the one in Baton Rouge. Your thoughts on
Yeah.
what's at stake down there Saturday night?
Probably a few thousand Twitter followers for Lane Kiffin, according to Brian Kelly. That's what determines his validity as a coach. Look, this is to me, this is a separator game. And Paul, the overarching theme of the SEC right now. I mean, all I need to do, and when I looked into Mississippi State that's coming in here to Sanford Stadium, Kirby's already tried to get the fans fired up. He wants to create noise. He's got some concern. And you say, well, wait a minute, Mississippi State's creating concern. I went back and looked. That's 7-6 until the final play of the first half in Austin. It's 14-6 until the final play of the third quarter. That's the number one team in the country playing the 16th team in the SEC. And it's a one-score game on the road in Austin until the final play of the third quarter. And I think that says everything about the depth and the parity in this league. So now we're talking about Ole Miss and LSU, razor thin margins. I don't know what LSU's really done, right? They won a controversial game at South Carolina. There's a call, an interception, and not interception, right? Ole Miss has kind of been Jekyll and Hyde. I kind of feel like maybe they got exposed a little bit for a weak schedule. Kentucky made them pay at home. They went on the road and trounced South Carolina. I kind of feel like Lane Kiffin has the house in order, is under the lights in Baton Rouge, always a challenge. But I like Ole Miss here. I feel like Ole Miss is back on track. I feel like Ole Miss is the more explosive team. Obviously, Jaden Daniels is gone. Newsmeyer, good quarterback, but not him. So I'm going to take Ole Miss in this game. And I think Ole Miss is still a playoff contender. So this is a big game for Lane Kiffin and his team to get in the right direction. If they go in the wrong direction with that number of transfers, and you wonder about team culture when you have that many transfers in-house, things can go south quickly. So I think this is a must-win for Ole Miss, and I think they're going to get it.
Talking to Mike Griffith here from DawgNation. Let's talk about Knoxville. You've covered the heyday of this game. This used to be the definitive game in the SEC. I had to remember it was even being played this year because there's so many other more compelling games, but it's important. Your thoughts on Billy Napier trying to inch back to respectability here?
Well, I think this game is compelling. One of the more interesting facets is the game's been moved back later in the year. And that came forward when Alabama played Georgia. It was the first meeting of two top 5 ranked SEC teams since 1999, back when Florida and Tennessee used to play in September. And somebody's season was kind of over with, right? Remember, there was only 2 teams that got in. Now we just go, oh, well, maybe they could lose another one or two. But now it's not like that. Billy Napier still coaching for his future. Impressive win against Central Florida. Thought they would get it. They got it. Josh Heupel, they got to have a bounce back win. They went down to Arkansas and Nico's inexperience got exposed a little bit. Got to give Sam Pittman and Petrino a lot of credit. The Hogs are playing tough, but still, that's a game that if Tennessee is a playoff team, you expect them to win. They need to bounce back in a really big way. Tennessee really good at home, Paul. You know that. When Neyland Stadium gets packed and rocking, it's going to be a big challenge. Napier's teams have played decent against Tennessee in the past. This is one I'll be tuned into. I do think Tennessee will win and pull away late, but I think this is going to be a bit of a dogfight.
Let's talk about the state of affairs in Tuscaloosa after the Vanderbilt loss. We spent all week talking about Vanderbilt and had Diego Pavia on here yesterday. I'm more interested in your thoughts on just Kalen DeBoer in Alabama.
Well, I mean, remember, he's a first-year coach, and there's a new system, and Vanderbilt plays somewhat of a unique system, and Diego played out of his mind, and Vanderbilt played tremendous. I mean, you heard what Nick Saban said. They played it on, I don't know how much of a jumbotron it is at Vanderbilt Stadium, but they played it on a replay board, that the only place that's not difficult to play in the SEC is at Vanderbilt. And Nick Saban, of all people, to provide firepower and motivation to the other team, some irony in that. But give Vanderbilt credit. I mean, I think.
Yeah, I mean, listen. That's why I said we accept what Vanderbilt's all about. I'm trying to get your opinion of what Alabama is all about right now.
I think they're going to right the ship. I really do. I think they're going to win impressively against South Carolina. Remember, there's like 36 or 37 new guys on this Alabama team. There's a new scheme. When you play a unique offense,
well, all those
new
players and all those new schemes were able to beat Georgia the week before, in case you forgot.
They sure were, and I would guess they put a lot of time, and they were playing a more conventional offense, and I don't recall Carson Beck playing out of his mind that night. In fact, I thought he played poorly in the first half, and I thought the defense was also poor. So, again, I'm not ready to throw Alabama and the baby out with the bathwater. I still think Alabama's a premium team. I still think you're going to see them in the playoff. Expect them to bounce back, win by 4 or 5 touchdowns in Tuscaloosa. This is a really good coach, but it's a new staff with some new players. They're going to be coming home. That's going to be enough. They're going to wipe out the Gamecocks. And next week, we're going to be talking about Alabama, back in the top 4 or 5. I mean, this is a great football team that had a bad game. They had a slow start. Jalen Milroe didn't play the same game. He ran the ball 16 times against Georgia. They came out there swinging for the fence. They knew they had to put it out there. And let's be honest, there's human nature involved here. When you play with emotion, and Kirby Smart said this, when you ride the wave of emotion, sometimes you get caught at the bottom of the wave. And I felt like Alabama went in there unprepared for a much more hostile and capable Vanderbilt team than I certainly thought. And odds makers agreed, 22 points. So I think Alabama learns a lesson from this. I think they come back home. I think they, get their feet underneath them. Everybody's attention is locked in. I think it's a blip on the radar screen. And with the new college football playoff, the expanded playoff, you can have a game like this. And this was Alabama's game like this. So expect them to get it right. Kalen DeBoer is a fantastic coach. And I think they're going to beat South Carolina. I really do. I don't think the sky's falling in Tuscaloosa. I'm not on that narrative.
Mike Griffith joining us from Georgia as we begin the program here on this Thursday afternoon.